Hey everyone. I did create a setting to mute you all as you came in. So that way, as people join in, if they're not already muted, sometimes what happens in the meeting, then people come in late and then you hear their background noise and it sounds really funny. But so you are all muted, but please feel free to unmute yourself and talk. There's no, I don't want this to be, I'm not like presenting for time. I want us to be able to have a chat together and just to let you know you're not alone, and see some other faces. I love my husband dearly. We've been together for 33 years, married 30 years this summer, but this living together for 24/7, I'm not sure how people do it who don't really care for each other.
She said this a lot to everyone she possibly can talk to.
But it's because it's funny, because it's true. We're very compatible, but this living together 24/7, it's been interesting. So I just talked to Dr. Nikki a little while ago. She should be logging on soon. I don't think that she's here yet. My chat window is covering the people coming in. So, wow, so happy to have all of you guys here. I guess I'll have to keep an eye to see when she logs in. So if you don't know, I am Annalise Record, and I'm the creator and moderator of the Math Running Record Facebook group. I met Dr. Nikki many years ago, actually at a BER seminar. She was presenting, and it was a conference, a 2-day conference. And you're able to pick from literacy and mathematics sessions. And I went to her first one. I've always loved math, but so I went to her first math one, and I stayed with her the entire 2 days because I'm like, what is this world she's exposing to me? And she was just so passionate, and I loved it. So I ended up having my district hire her as a consultant. And so she doesn't like to drive. So I drove her around for the week. We were in northern New Hampshire. And she's like, oh, I'll get a taxi or a driver. And I'm like, taxis don't exist in Berlin, New Hampshire. So I was her driver, and we were able to hang out all week long, literally all day, every day. We had dinner together every day, and just struck up a good friendship. And then she changed my life. So she and Christina Tondeville both changed my life. So it's very thankful to her. And so hopefully she will be logging on soon, and then she'll unmute herself when she comes in. But so I think what I'll do is I will get going. I had just a couple of things I wanted to share with you. I wanted this to be a time just for us to see each other's faces, not even necessarily a formal like webinar type thing, but just to let you know that Dr. Nikki and I are out here and thinking of you, and just oh, here she is. Hey, Dr. Nikki. You're muted though. I mute everyone as they're coming in just in case there are background noises. So you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
So I was just welcoming everyone to the chat and explaining a little bit about how this isn't really a formal presentation type thing, but more of an informal chat, and to see each other's faces beyond our family members who we're living with right now, and how you and I wanted to give them a couple of ideas of working on fluency with their kiddos at home, and how they can continue that fluency journey when they're not in school with us. So that's what I just got started with. We've got lots of people. Just fantastic.
Can we start with questions just to start?
Absolutely, sure.
I mean, we know what we want to do, but what are the most pressing questions?
There we go. Nice to meet you. I'm the elementary math teacher leader for the district, and we're right now creating our math lessons for distant learning that we're going to start next week. We haven't quite started yet. And so, of course, the big question is, how do you engage in student-centered fluency activities and routines, knowing that your students don't have all of the same resources? Some students might have parents or other people in the house to play games with, some may not. Some may have someone helping them with a computer screen, some may not. Some may have dice and cards, some may not. And we're also talking about teachers and kids from K through 2 that aren't used to doing things digitally. And I'm sure everybody else is facing that same issue.
All right, you just asked like 5 questions. I mean, I'll take a shot at it. One of the things is we're gonna have to I mean, some people are being forced to use packets, you know, not forced, but resorting to packets because their kids don't have tech. So I would try to do like thinking routines, like do the thinking routines in the packets. So like do, when we're specifically talking about fluency right now, do which one doesn't belong, do some games like tic-tac-toe doubles, do put a blank board game in there and have the kids make up their own game board with their parents. So some of the, I would offer, if you have to do a packet, I would try to do it in a way where it's still getting kids to reason. Right. And then some, and I would do some games that kids can do with their families, just because you have some kids that will do games with their parents. And the thing is that a lot of parents who are afraid of the math, they know tic-tac-toe. So they're not afraid, like if you say we're gonna play tic-tac-toe and it's doubles or it's doubles plus 1 or whatever, they're not so afraid to jump in and do that because the structure is familiar. So I would put some things like that in there, create packets where kids are still thinking. Annalise, what would you say?
That's a great idea. I was watching the different chat box and the other people. Have any of you seen the packet that was done by Fawn Wynn? She on Twitter. Her last name isn't spelled the way that it sounds, but she created a document which I will share. That is for K-8, but it has a day's worth of like 5 questions for each child. But there are things like which one doesn't belong and number talks and visuals, like all the things we want the kids to be able to do. She has made this for free for anyone K-8. So I shared it recently. So if you haven't seen that, I will definitely share it in our Facebook group. I'll make a note to share that because that's an idea as well. Working on those for sure. And I think that the I did a webinar yesterday for NCSM participant for Chrissy Newell, who showed about virtual manipulatives. And the Math Learning Center has a Math Learning Center apps, and they have all the math tools that you'd want. And she was actually showing the research behind that kids tend to be even more engaged when it's in the visual way, because they're still able to get all the benefits of physical objects, but they can also have other added things too, like rotating things or changing the color, and you don't run out of them. So she was mentioning a lot of teachers use as a reason why they don't use manipulatives is the management piece. And so she's like, well, there's no management issue because it's on a computer. You don't have them falling on the ground. You don't have, kids off task. So I think that's worthwhile to think about also, that if your children are having access to computers and digital things, they have virtual manipulatives. So that shouldn't be a hindrance to encouraging kids to use them. And I had not realized within the Math Learning Center app that you can record and share the work that you did with your teacher. I had no idea that was a part of that app. So the kids could then work on something, use the virtual manipulatives, and then in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a button about share. And they share with you a link to their work. So
that's good. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I just learned that yesterday.
The other thing though, I would say is I definitely would use Math Learning Center because I love Math Learning Center, but I would also use the Didax manipulatives. And one of the things that you should do is you should give the parents, like you should say, this is the manipulative, and then these are a list of things that you can do with this manipulative for your child at their grade level, right? So, so for instance, the Didax has different, some of them overlap, but they have different manipulatives than Math Learning Center. Like in Didax, you can do the scale, right? In Didax, they have the 1-inch tiles. So there's some different, in Didacts, they have the 2-color counters. So there's some different materials as well as, you know, some of the same. But in Math Learning Center, like they have the digital number line, right? Which they don't have in Didacts. So I would, right. Both of them have the rec, looks at that rec and rec, but it really doesn't matter until I found out about the Didacts one. The other site I would use for virtual manipulatives is I really like, now I'm going completely blank. It's Glencoe. Glencoe, and you know why I like them? There, you can get lost in there. It's like it's just like a wonderland. So don't get lost. Like if you're trying, I know we don't have a video. How many people are familiar with Glencoe? So I'm going to just go out. I'm going to share my screen for a second. And I'm going to show you, if you go to Glencoe, virtual manipulatives. So when you get in here, there's a lot going on, right? But if you want to be really strategic about what you're doing with the kids, you can go up here and select the grade level. It goes all the way to 8th grade. And then you can go in here and select the backgrounds. You could do game boards, storyboards, or work maps. So I do a lot of storyboards with the kids. So I'll go in and I'll say, well, let's tell a story about camping. And then I could pull up the camping story. And then I could just use manipulatives. I always like the bears. So I use the bears. But you don't, you know, if you're in 4th grade, maybe you don't want to use the bears. But you can do all kinds of things, right? With this, there were, you know, there were 5 bears, 3 of them were blue, 2 of them were green. You know, what fraction of the bears were blue? I mean, there's just tons of stories that you can do with this. That's fractions. It doesn't have anything to do with like direct operational fluency. I use bears in a boat a lot on the beach because you can pull out the boat. This is for kindergarten and 1st grade teachers. And then watch what the bears do. They sit in the boat. Right? That's a cheap thrill, but the kids love it. If you're kindergarten or 1st grade, the bears sit in the boat, and then you can tell all kinds of addition and subtraction stories with it. Let me tell you guys what I've been doing. So I have been tutoring my godchild, and he's in 3rd grade. So 3 days a week, we have a tutoring session. And this is what I've been doing with him in the tutoring session. It's an hour long. So the first thing I do with him is a math playground problem because it has addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Are you guys all familiar with math playground? It really helps the kids to learn to bar diagram. So I always start off, we only do one problem. I make him draw it, and then I make him hold it up to the screen so I could see. So he's really learning how to bar diagram because he had no idea what that was at all, right? And then after we do bar diagramming, we'll do like a magic square because, you know, there's a million magic squares and that works directly on Fluency and it's free. So you just pull magic square, you put in magic squares. And remember, Sue Looney just wrote that book on magic squares. And I think it's free online somewhere. I haven't figured that part out, but I think the book is online free somewhere. So you just go to images and then there's a million magic squares that you can pull up with your kids. There's dad's worksheets, there's math salamanders, but they say worksheets, but they're not really worksheets, right? So this is, you know, the sum is 34. So the kids have to figure out, it's like missing number, but it's a puzzle. So the kids have to figure out, well, what numbers go in here? And then we talk about, well, how do I add that strategically? How do I figure that out strategically? So every day with him, we do first math playground, then we do some sort of a magic square, then we do an algebraic thinking puzzle, right? And because algebraic thinking puzzles, what's really interesting about that is he was telling me, let me see if I could find it for you guys. He was telling me the first day we did it, he was like, this is really hard. The second day we did it, I said, what's your favorite part? He was like, oh, the algebra. right? Because he kind of got like how you do it. So this is that stuff from Math Mashup, but you can look anywhere and make up your own. This is getting kids to reason and getting kids to do fluency. If you're working on pure fluency and you're trying to build algebraic thought, these are some of the best puzzles. They're all free. You only do 1 or 2 a day, and you get kids to think, because like he wanted to start up here, and I'm like, is that going to really help us? I need you to find the equation that's going to help us. And of course, I screenshotted this and made it big so that the answers weren't right there. I said, which one of these equations is going to help us? He goes, oh, I should start with the grapes. And then from the grapes, I can, right? So it's getting kids to reason. Remember, whatever you do, even though we're tethered to the computer right now, you're always trying to do, it's better to do this for 10 minutes than to try to get kids to do 15 problems in 5. You know what I mean? Remember that more than ever, less is more, right? We've got to do less, and it's got to be quality, and it's got to get the kids thinking, and that's really what we're going for. And I would only work on priority standards, because the thing is, the reality of it is this: kids are missing basically a third of the school year. So I think one of the things we have to think about is, what are the implications for next year? We have kids that are missing a third of the school year. What are the implications of that? So our best bet is to go for priority standards. We need kids to know fluency. We need kids to know how to solve word problems, which goes right along with fluency. We need kids, if they're in 3rd, 4th, that know multiplication, division, and fractions. We got to go for priority standards. We don't have that much time. At least we got a running chance is that we have priority standards. All right, I'm talking a lot. Annalise, I'm giving it back over to you.
No, I'm asking, I'm learning right along with you. This is my life, everyone. I just have her talk and I just take notes. I just learn from her. So I'm looking at some chat groups, the chats here. So someone said, can I record? And yes, you can. I am recording this session, and I will be uploading it to the Math Running Record Facebook group so everyone can benefit from this learning tonight. Someone had asked, these magic squares look wonderful. How can I determine which grade level to use these with? Is there a gradation of difficulty to these magic squares?
Yes. So like if you go into magic squares, like this is the sum of 34, the sum of 42. These are more like 2nd grade, 3rd grade, right? But there's also magic squares that are 3 by 3, right? So this is more of a 1st grade, right? A 1st grade, or if you have kids that aren't fluent, it's 2nd grade.
Great.
Right. So like the child that I'm working with is a 3rd grader, but he's not, he knows his strategies, but he doesn't use them. So like today we were adding, I can't remember on what, I think it was one of those algebra puzzles. We were adding 14, 6, and 18. So he says, well, he just took the first 2 add-ins. He goes, well, I'm going to add 18 and 14. And I was like, you could do that, but is that like, that seems like, and it took him a while to do it. So I was like, that seems like a tricky problem. Is there another way? And so then we talked about, like, you want to make 10s, add the 14 and the 6 to get 20. And then you can add, the 18 on, or whatever the number was. So I find with magic squares that kids will persevere, and they don't want to give up. They want to do it because it's a puzzle. So I do this. So that's what I've been doing with him. I have been doing, we start out every day with a problem on Math Playground, because there's tons of them. And not just the video problems, but once you finish the video problems, you can go into, let me pull it up so that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So if you go to Math Playground, there's 3 things, thinking blocks. There's 3 things that you can do when teaching your kids. The first thing is to show the video, and like, you don't just show the video, you talk about the video, you have the kids do the math, and then you show the video so they could see, what the bar diagram looks like. So those are the videos. But then there's these, right? And so these are, say I wanted to work with him on multiplication, I can pull these up and I can just pull up a problem and do these with him as well. So that's a second layer of this. The third layer of this is, and so this is how this works. I pick a part that I want to work on, I go here, and then the kids have to, you know, they would tell me where do I put the labels, and then you know, that we would do the problem. So that's the second part. The third part of thinking blocks is this, where you make your own problem. So 1 is the videos, 2 is like the private practicing, and 3 is the thinking blocks where it's the own tool, right? Remember that drawing bar diagrams is in everybody's standards. It doesn't matter what state you're in. So, you know, from 2nd grade up. So there's 2 pools. This is the pool if you know what you're doing. I always tell people, here's the lifeguard. Use thinking blocks, word problems. Swim with the lifeguard, because most people aren't fluent. All the teachers I know are still really trying to figure out, because this isn't the way we learn, right? So if you do this with your kids, then you can always say, see the model, and it'll show you the model. Right. And you can say, today we're going to do an addition problem. Tomorrow we're going to do a multiplication problem. And you can say, okay, see the model. After they've tried to figure out what it looks like, you could do a new challenge until kids actually understand how to solve that problem. All of this, you pull it up. I would have the kids draw it and then hold it up so we could see, you know, what they're doing. So those are the 3 parts of Math Playground that build fluency and work on problem solving at the same time, which are 2 of the priority standards that you want to work on. There's one other thing that I want to say, though, really quickly, is that this has made me think of, this is a long time ago. I'm dating myself, probably 17 years ago now, 17 or 16 years ago. Do you guys remember web quests?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is a perfect opportunity to create some sort of version of a web quest for your kids, because in the web quest, they do part 1, part 2, and then they have to, like, it could be a Google Doc. So part 2 could be go online and answer how you would solve this, or, you know, so and the web quest, remember, they do all kinds of things. I would really think about using web quests. Also, I would think about using Glogster, because Glogster, and at Glogster, you have to pay. I don't know what they have going on now that we're living in just crazy times. But Glogster, you have to put in education Glogster, because if not, crazy, stupid stuff comes up. So you want to put in Glogster in education. And then this is what a glog looks like. Here's a content library. So you can go on and say, I want to go to math. So you, as the teacher, can create a glog for your kids. Say I'm in 4th grade, I want to work on factors and multiples. So I can go in here and create a glog that the kids have to work through. And then there's, like, you can put in documents where they have to put their answer, papers where they can post things. The glog is like a blank template. It's kind of like a web quest almost, but it's a glog, right? And so, and these are videos that you can either import or you can make videos. So I would really think about using Glogster as a way for kids to navigate, right, the things that we want them to do. So that's one thing. So I'm thinking of WebQuest, Glogster, and then the final thing is Voicethread. How many people know Voicethread? Voicethread is really good. I pulled my account up, and I haven't looked at that account in years, but I was thinking Voicethread, this is like where we are at, because in Voicethread, it's the same kind of thing. You put up a video, and or like you could put up a PowerPoint, like maybe just 3 pages of a PowerPoint, and then I'm just going to show you. These are some that I did when I was a professor. I used to have my students do glogs. So let's look at this one. We're not going to look at the whole thing, but this is what it looks like. So this is on kid watching, and I created a PowerPoint, and then what happens is the students have to respond. I'm not seeing the response, but the students respond. And so they type in and they type their answers to whatever whatever it is that you put up there. So what I'm trying to say is this is another way to get kids to interact, right? So and your kids can sign on with an avatar, they can sign on as themselves, they could do a video, they could do whatever, but you put up a blog, like 2 or 3 things, maybe you're working on a strategy, and then the kids have to answer. So and then you can have your kids do them, because I had my students make voice threads that we would then respond to, right? So I hope that was probably a terrible definition of what voice thread is, but like this is one that my student made, and then the whole class has to go on and comment on what she said, and it's super easy to do. And so you can, this was what she did, and then I don't know why I'm not seeing like our responses, but then the class responded, and usually what you see all along the side is like what everybody said about this slide. So anyway, those are some ideas. And Annalise, I'm turning it, well, first of all, are there any questions about any of that? And then Annalise, I'm turning it back over to you.
There's a question about, could you show what you meant about the algebra thinking puzzle?
Yes, the algebra thinking puzzle was, let's see, not that one. It was the one with like the pineapples and stuff. So here you go. So Math Mashup has tons of these, but you can get them anywhere. These are the algebraic thinking puzzles. So what they're doing is they're getting kids to work on addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And, but they're thinking. So it's developing that algebraic thought. They're so good for developing algebraic thought and fluency. And they have them at every grade level, right? So this is I'm sorry?
Do you have that on your screen? Because I'm not seeing it on my screen.
Oh, yeah, I have it on my screen.
I'm not seeing it either.
Let's see.
There we go.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. So you see there's tons of them. Like this was a string of them, and there were 17 of them. And so there's addition, subtraction, multiple division, there's emojis. I mean, there's just tons of fun ones, and the kids want to do it. This is a multiplication one. So this would be, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. But they have algebraic thinking puzzles. Here's another one. They have open arrays that are algebraic thinking puzzles. Here's an open array. They're just so good because they help kids to think, and that's what you're trying to ultimately get your kids to do. So that's what I would do with your kids. I would rather spend 10 minutes having a rich conversation about what the values of these are than spend 20 minutes going over the multiplication tables in a rote form. Right? So what the point I'm trying to make is that you guys are always trying to get your kids to think. I think when you look at activities, the first question you should ask yourself is, does this make kids think? What level of DOK is this activity? How can I bump it up even a little bit? Right? How can I take it from a 1 to a 2? Because really, when you're doing packets and stuff, you're really living in the land of 1 for the most part. So just think about how can you take it from a depth of knowledge level 1 to a depth of knowledge level 2 even, right? With some things that are already made. Everybody is stressed enough. You do not need to try to create stuff. There is plenty of things out there. Like if I want to do this, and like I am doing this, so I'm not telling you ideas that I think would be a good thing to do with kids. I'm telling you what I do with my godson, right? And we do it for an hour, and that's our routine. Word problem, some sort of magic square or thinking routine. We always do an algebraic challenge, and then what I have him doing right now, which is, you guys know I wrote a series of books that just came out on day-by-day thinking routines. So I'm taking him through those. We're doing 2 weeks a day. So, and actually we didn't even get through that. We did 1.5 weeks, but it's very interesting. So that's what I would do. I think that's what you have to aim for, is getting kids to think. Annalise?
People are asking about whether this would be parent friendly or not. And I would imagine you would build these with the kids and grade it, not grade it at all. I mean, make it more difficult when they're more familiar with them.
Absolutely.
So giving an addition one to a third grader right now like this is a good place
Absolutely.
to start. You don't want to start at one in multiplication and
Right.
freak everyone out.
Yeah, we didn't start here. These are all multiplications. We started at the easy ones. And he was like, these are hard. And we were just doing multiplication and division. I mean, we were just doing addition and subtraction. And the thing is, remember that Papert says this, Seymour Papert, he said that kids like hard fun. And so that's what we're going for. We're going for hard fun, right? Kids are like, it was hard, but it was fun. They will stick with this because it's a puzzle. It's building reasoning. It's building operational thinking. And it's tricky. The answer's not just there. You have to think, right? That's what you're going for.
Could you give me back control of the screen to here? All right. So I just had a couple of things I wanted to share with you all while I had you here. So I'm going to share my screen. You know, I am an independent consultant, so my my work life has come to a screeching halt. So now I've been home, and I empathize so much for all you classroom teachers who, when so much is being asked of you to prepare for your kids at home, and also you have your own children at home as well. So this is our dog. My husband and I, our kids are 27 and 24, and they live away from us in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin right now. And so we did a very cliche midlife, let's get a dog, because we've only ever owned cats. And so this is our Marty McFly, and he is just adorable. But there are these moments I'm finding during the day that he is just like napping all day. And he's the most cuddly thing. He's so adorable. At this point, he didn't want to go for a walk. He didn't want to leave here. But then there are times when Marty is just all over the place. So this is our driveway, as crazy as that is. But he's just flying around. And I use this in my presentations talking about kids thinking. That very often I have seen classrooms where it is dreadfully boring because the teacher's presenting and the kids are just quiet and it's just like drudgery. And then they've been in classrooms where a teacher's doing like a number talk and the kids are alive and they're engaged and there's just so much more energy. But I'm using this tonight with you guys in terms of the fact that we're living this life right now of Marty being either napping and adorable and our hearts are full with love, and him running around or in our house and destroying everything. And my husband and I are working from home. And so we're getting stressed trying to get our work done, but the dog is needing us to watch him. And I can only imagine what it's like for you guys with families at home, that you're being asked to be online with your kids. Some of you, I know, friends of mine are being asked to be in front of their computer from 8 until 3 to be available and not go any more than 5 minutes to respond to parents. And it's just, I wanted to let you know that I'm empathizing with what you're going through, and you're all heroes to me. I mean, it's just amazing. So I wanted to give a couple of ideas of things that maybe you could do to keep fluency going. I'm not sure if any of you, if you're all aware that Dr. Nikki and I and Dr. Allison Mello did write a book giving lots of ideas for addition and subtraction and how to explore these strategies with games and activities and hands-on things with manipulatives. And each of these strategies in the addition and subtraction progression that she has for their math running records has a quiz. Now, we didn't have these materials created for the book. So none of the templates in the book are available at the moment online, but I did create all of the quizzes. So one of the first things that I did, now that I'm not traveling like I always am, I did create these. So these are available right now in our Google Drive folder. So hopefully you know that there is a Padlet for our Math Running Record Facebook group. There's a link to that at the top of the Facebook group. And you'll find a folder in the Google Drive that is the Fluency Doesn't Just Happen quizzes. So I want to let everyone know that those are there now. Again, it's all the addition and subtraction strategies. Each one has a quiz. Now, I also want to talk just for another second about some great things you can be doing to give kids to talk about things at home. So rather than having practice sheets of math facts, having them talk about number relationships. So Berkeley Everett has these amazing math flips where he's got little videos on his site. I gave you the site down there as well, but if you just search math flips in Google, you'll get to his site. And this is all for free. There's no cost to this at all. But when you print these out or you have them on your screen, whatever you solve in part A will help you solve part B. So the 10 frames there, you could discuss with the students, how do you know how many dots there are? And there are a variety of strategies they might use. They might count them all. They might count on from the first 7. They might see 2 5s and 2 2s. I mean, however the kids are seeing that. When they come to the conclusion that that is 7 plus 7, it makes a 14, how can that knowledge help us on side B? Because side B has one more circle that's gray. So you can see that. To help them see how knowing 7 plus 7 can help you solve 7 plus 8, but in a visual way. Also, he has in these sets rec and recs. So the idea that this color coded with a 5, that 6 and 6 is 12, how will that, oops, can you able to see that? It's
Yes.
hidden under my picture of all your faces. But the rec and rec shows 12 of them in the first one, but side B is missing 1 bead. So that 6 and 6 can help me solve 6 plus 5. And eventually, he has sets of cards where you'd ask the kids, how can 8 plus 8 help me solve 8 plus 7 in an abstract way? But that's very different than just giving kids flashcards of all the addition facts, telling them to memorize them and learn them. So the math flips to me is a game changer. He has these for different sets of facts. He has them for counting on 3 facts, for doubles and near doubles, the bridge 10 strategy, subtraction and multiplication as well. So you've got to know about these math flips. They're just awesome. And I want to talk a little bit tonight about multiplication, because we have a lot of resources right now in our Facebook group on adding and subtracting, because the book that we wrote, but also in our Google Drive folder, we've got a lot of activities and things for addition and some subtraction. But multiplication and division, we're currently writing that book right now. And so we don't have as many resources yet for them. So I want to touch base for a second on multiplication. And here's a suggested progression from the Math Running Record from Dr. Nikki's research. And we have the first 5, the 0s, 1s, 10s, 5s, and 2s as being those foundational facts. Having the kiddos be able to master those, because they can use those to solve the ones that are higher, with higher facts. So, and again, going through multiplication strategies, not going sequentially 1 to 10, but to do it in these orders allows us to capitalize on the number of relationships. Now, this is not to say that the kids won't know their doubles before they know their 10s or their 5s, but by having the doubles concentrated on here, we can then use those to help us solve the 4s, because it could be thought of as double the double to get to 4. And if I know my 4s, I can double those to get to my 8s. And then the 3s are here. They might know their 3s by now, but at least we have it here to connect it to the 6s. That one way you could think about it is to think about 6s as being double your 3s. The times 9s, the idea of multiplying by a 10 and removing a group. And then by 7s. Now, by 7s, if you find all the math facts, the last one is 7 times 7. But you also can explore 7s as being breaking it apart into 5 groups and 2 groups, because the 5 groups is something that they know, and the doubles they know. You can use that as a partial product. So I just want to remind you there about that progression there, and that Berkeley Everett has multiplication ones. So here's an example of his doubles, related doubles again. So in our array here that we have a 4 by 8 array, the kids can figure that out as much, however they want to. They could skip count by 4s, skip count by 8s. They could break it apart into partial arrays. That visualization is just so crucial for the kids to understand that. But when they determine that that is 32, then how could that help us solve this one? Well, that same figure from side A is on side B. And what do I have left? Another one of those. So it's discussing how can a 4 by 8 help me solve an 8 by 8, that I can double my 32 to get to my 64. So those math flips, again, I think are just amazing. A couple of suggestions for some games you can play or have the kids play at home with their parents. I think parents is a huge thing, including the parents on this math journey. But parents can know their math facts. Like if you feel comfortable playing these games with the kids, or a child can play by themselves. I know there's an issue of sometimes parents not being at home during the day. So the kids can do this on their own. Their job is to get as many of the 100 squares filled as possible. You can get a copy of this on the ucube.org site. The idea is you roll 2 dice, generate 2 numbers, draw the square rectangle around it, and then you put the expression inside and you record it down below. And you're trying to cover, it's kind of like a Tetris game, trying to cover as much as 100 as you can and see if a different game you can get closer to 100. Now I saw on Twitter yesterday, Mark Chubb, he's home with his kids. And so when the kids are working on higher math facts, you can use larger grid paper and just try to fill the paper. So you can see all these different generated facts that they did. But they have that visual support of the rectangular, the area model, and being able to use partial products to figure out that total if they don't know what they are. So I love that game. And here's a game called the multiplication game. Now, in this version right now, the versions, you're using the numbers 1 to 9. So down below, you'll see game number 1 is beginning with the number 7. So if I were playing a partner and I go first, I would choose, let's say, a 4. I can do any number 1 through 9. So I'll do 4 times 7, and now I own the 28th spot. Now my partner then is given the 4 to work with. The 7 no longer exists. So if I'm giving them the 4, they can multiply that 4 by any number 1 through 9. So let's say they choose 8. So they own the 32nd spot. Well, now they're giving me the 8. I have to use that 8, but I can multiply it by anything 1 through 9. So if I choose 5 to own the 40 spot, now my partner is in a precarious place because the winner of the game gets 3 in a row. Now, if my partner chooses to do a math fact to own a product that happens to have a 6 or a 9 as a factor, I could use the factor they're giving me to win the game. So if they're only paying attention to themselves and getting some in a row, they could inadvertently give me a factor that I can then use to win. Same thing here with the 20. If they gave me a 4 or a 5, I could win the game. I could use that to own that 20th spot. So it's a very, very strategic game. So the kids, my partner might choose to do 5 times 4 to block me and own that 20. And now I've got to keep in mind too with the other people, what factor to give them that they couldn't win with the 49 or the 9. But let's say I use 4 times 4, so I own the 16. Now with 3 in a row, I can win diagonally, vertically, horizontally. So my partner needs to be careful. Let's say they chose to own the 12. I can then use that that 3 to multiply by 9 and win with the 27. But it's a game you can play over and over again, and it makes you practice all kinds of math facts. Now, I played this game in my 5th grade classroom when I was a classroom teacher, and I loved it. But I also felt for my students who didn't have all their math facts ready, it was a hard game for them to play because they had not mastered all their math facts, and you need them all to play strategically, right? So now that I'm at home and having time on my hands, I created 2 versions of this last week. I did a foundational fact game. So those you can use the numbers 1 to 10, but the products are only multiples of 1, 2, 5, and 10. And then I created a doubles version, so the 2s, 4s, and 8s. But for that game, you're only allowed to use the numbers 2 to 9. So the game is played exactly the same. You're getting 3 in a row. You can determine it to play it also to change the rules and have it be 4 in a row to win the game. However you want to play it. I mean, I think games and rules are meant to be broken. So you do whatever you want with these. But I have loaded these to our Padlet because I wanted to provide that foundational support for our kiddos who are on their learning journey and have them not be frustrated by having all math facts if they're not there yet. So those versions are all for you on the Padlet. And I also just want to share for a second, typically I share in my seminars these kind of comics, which are not funny to me at all, but the phobic nature of math and how it's hated in our society. But this last one here, oh my gosh, I've seen so many memes these last few weeks about parents helping kids with their homework, but the pictures in these memes are the parents are yelling at their children. They're taking out their phobic nature of math and their frustration with it, and it just makes me so sad to think about. So I decided I had to do something. A lot of my consulting work, when I do long distance, when I'm working with district long term, I ask us to do a math night because I want the parents to be a part of this journey. So this was a one we did in Rhode Island, and we had games that night, and these kids are playing a missing factor game. So the 2 parents have a card on their forehead, their daughter is telling them the product of those 2 games, and then the mom can look at the dad's card and figure out what her card is. So it's a missing factor. You also can do it with addition as a missing addend. And I've also created a Padlet just for parents. This is available to anyone. I wanted to create something for parents out there to hopefully alleviate some of this stress, give them links to the best resources out there for parents. In the first column there for my videos, I created videos this last week on what does addition, what's the heart of addition, how can you build it with basic facts and go to larger numbers for the whole trajectory. I did a video on subtraction, one of multiplication. I'll make one eventually with division. But I wanted to do something for parents and help them in this fluency journey with us to involve them in this journey. So I want to let you all know that is there. It's a tinyurl.com site. It's just called Record Parents. So feel free to share that with any colleagues as well. And so that's what I was wanting to share with you guys tonight by having your captive attention here. Some resources I want to make sure you had because I post in the Math Running Record Facebook group, but I'm not always assured everyone sees the links or the posts that I make. So
I just
right.
want to remind people of, when you're on there, can you go to the Math Running Records and push the link, since you already have your screen up, for freebies? Because there is, if you go to Math Running Records and you go under freebies, there's a game for every strategy. And these are just games, they're really missing number games. Excuse me. So just know that that's there if parents have.
So the mathrunningrecords.com site, everyone knows that's where you get the Math Running Records from. And so here is her site, and up here with freebies.
And then you just go in there and there is a game for every strategy. And then some sites, there's more than one game. So you can just look in there, and I'll be adding, you know, as we go along. And they're simple games, missing add-in games. And there's some flashcards, and there's some thinking games. I don't care if people copy them and put them in their packets. They were meant for you to use with your kids. Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Has everyone seen the Padlet? So you're all familiar with the Padlet for the Math Running Record group. So again, tinyurl.com/mathrr. I finally found out a way to make a nicer name than all the miscellaneous letters and numbers. So yeah, again, lots of resources on there as well. That's where the multiplication game is on the Padlet for the Math Running Record group. All 3 versions of it now. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, so any questions, or does anyone else want to share anything? Have you found anything that you have done to be successful? I mean, I know that it was first a shock to be told that school was closing, and over a weekend suddenly you're supposed to go right to online teaching by the next day. I know my former district, like they were going like on the Tuesday after they were stopping school on the Friday, plus taking care of their children. And hello, dealing with the pandemic scariness of the world. Just, my mind is just spinning for all of you. But now schools are announcing that they're going to be out for much longer than just the 2 weeks. So now we got to settle into the reality of, okay, we really got to get our act together and do things. And at first, my thought was, do whatever you can to survive. I'm very much adamantly opposed to time tests. As I'm sure you all know. But I had a post in one of the groups that I facilitate ask, where can they find a link to a web page for 100 multiplication math facts? And I tried to post kindly to say, could you try something other than that? Because but if I don't know anyone's history, so if that person is in survival mode and trying to take care of a sick parent and whatnot, and they needed that just to keep kids busy, I'm not going to judge that. But now that we have time to kind of settle in that this is going to be for the foreseeable future, we've got to do better for our kids. And that's not a great way. The puzzles that Dr. Nikki showed us, so much more better time spent than doing 50 multiplication math facts, right? So, yeah. So Denise, go right ahead. I see that Denise raised her hand. If you click down under under participants, your name will show up on a list and you can raise a hand. And so then I guess I'm notified on the screen here. So go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, Annalise and Dr. Nikki, there was a question in the group chat about differentiating online, how to do that when kids are working on different strategies.
I would do it as I would do it probably as a web quest or something, and create 2 different ones, or a glog with 2 different, like an A and a B, right? Just so that you can have kids clustered around. You're not going to be able to differentiate for every child, but you can hit some of the big ticket items, right? Knowing that we want everybody, we're always thinking about equity. So how do you give everybody access to the content that they are supposed to learn? And so the question becomes, how do we scaffold that? One of the ways is that you could say, we're going to scaffold it on this Padlet by working with the manipulatives and have the kids show the problems. And on the other one, you might do some different things. You know what I mean? You're also trying to think about, where are the kids? So do you want, you might have one group of kids working on 0s, 1s, 10s, and 5s, and then another group of kids working on 2, 4, 8. So you're differentiating in terms of thinking where kids might be. It is really hard to think about how to differentiate in the space that we're in.
And
but
so
those are
also like, Yeah, someone had asked, like, how do we even do that? That there was a member here that did not get a chance to give math learning records to her kids, so she doesn't even know where to begin with them. And when I think of that, I try to think of like what grade level you're teaching and what are the heaviest hitting strategies. So, you know, in kindergarten, we want kids to be fluent within 5. Now, I don't know how you plan for a kindergartner to be at home and doing activities. I don't know. But when I think of like the expectations by grade level, that by K they're fluent within 5 by the end of the year to add and subtract, and then within 10 by the end of 1st grade, and then within 20 by 2nd and 3rd, and then by the time you get to 3rd to 5th, you want within 20 add, subtract, and then multiplication as well. I try to think of the heavy hitting ones. So for addition, I think of doubles, you know, and that hits the kids with the higher facts. Like 5 plus 6, most kids know is 11 because 5 and 5 is 10, and one more is an 11. But very often when I ask those same kids 6 plus 7, they count on their fingers. So that doubles and near doubles is a really heavy hitting strategy. And using those math flips from Berkeley Everett, you know, having some examples of those is a great way to just introduce the idea of that. And then of course the Bridge 10 strategy is the most powerful because we can extend that to larger numbers, the nearest 10, then the nearest 100, then the nearest whole for fractions and decimals. And as subtraction, we want to focus on the idea of using addition to solve subtraction, or using the takeaway method as well, but like within 10 and then within the 20. So the idea that we can, you know your students and around about where they are. It doesn't need to be a specific strategy that they're in this particular situation, that's not ideal, but you can focus on that within 10ness, within 5ness, within 10ness, within 20, and the heavy hitting strategies. And multiplication, those foundational facts. And then again, that's why I made that great game, because I don't want to, I was told by a person at a seminar once that she has a game that her kids love, but it's for the higher ended students, and her other students were upset they couldn't play that game. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want there ever to be a really fun game and some kids can't play it because they're not there yet, right? So that's why I wanted to make that foundational, my favorite multiplication game, make it with foundational facts and doubles and then all of them. So you can have that gradation of that. So however we can scaffold that the best, but we're in survival mode. We're going to do the best that we can, but you've got to know you can't be perfect, and you've got a life to live and families to take care of, and you got to keep your own sanity. So give yourself some grace and some peace.
I want to show one more site where you can get some stuff that doesn't cost anything. PIMS or printables. I always tell people go here because this is the Kentucky math site stuff. So they have games you can pull up and play with your kids. They're all free and they're fantastic. It's the Kentucky Center for Mathematics. You just pull it up, and so they have some they have, you know, adding 9 and 8 cards. They have, you know, doubles and near doubles cards. I mean, they have all kinds of stuff that you can just pull up for free, right? That works on strategies. I mean, they have tons of other stuff as well. I was trying to, let's see. So these are their cards. Like if I pull up these PIMS or printable cards. So this, you know, shows kids, it teaches kids. Like,
pardon me, Dr. Nikki, for interrupting you. We're not seeing that at all.
oh, well, that's not helpful then, huh? Let me see. Let's see. Okay. Do you guys see it?
Yes, now we do.
Okay, so it's like these are cards that are from, you know, so they help you. They help kids to understand, I'm going to make this a 10. Whenever I see a 9 or an 8 or 7, I'm going to make it a 10. Those are cards. They're free. You pull them down. Then they have, you know, these are the PIMSR doubles plus 1 cards. And so they have the cards. And what I would do, like some kids, these are cards just to, like they could play near doubles war, or you could have the kids draw out the doubles and then the doubles plus 1 fact, or you could have the kids play concentration where they're trying to match the doubles and the doubles plus 1 fact. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do with the resources that they have on this site. They also have a bunch of games.
Dr. Nikki, what site was that again?
If you put in PIMS or printables,
okay.
It's called the Kentucky Math site. It's KentuckyMathematics.org, but it's
I will add that to our Padlet. So I have
okay.
a awesome resource. I'll put that on the Padlet for everyone.
Okay. So they, they just have tons and tons and tons of good stuff. They have a whole bunch of games for getting kids to make 10. They have addition and subtraction games. There's just tons of stuff. They have these make 10 games where kids have to, these are good things to put up on your screen and then have a discussion with your kids about it. So the kids have to make 10. It's kind of like a boggle. So they have to, and whoever, says it first, 3 + 7, 5 + 5, whatever, they're trying to make 10 and see to 10. What I like about these is they're in Word. So you can go in and change it. Right after you've done that one, there's a make 5 one, there's a make 10 one, there's a make 10 rummy. I mean, they have tons and tons of games, and they're all free.
Nice. Yeah, so I will add that link for sure to the Padlet. So thank you, Laura. So Laura and Denise Smith, you guys are having my back here. Thank you for watching the chat rooms. They've been posting links to all these things in the chat room. So if you haven't yet checked out the chat room, when we mention something, they're already way ahead of me and putting a link in there for you. I'm
asking about what's tricky.
Yeah, the what's tricky. Someone was asking, how do you use that?
All right, I'm going to pull up one.
And then Beth, hang on, I'll have you speak in a second. I see that your hand is raised. And Alana, Miller, I'm happy to have you guys share any of my videos. I made it as just trying to help parents out there. I feel for them. I understand. I'm empathetic with them, but I also feel it's so important that we get them on board to understand. They'll be on board with us when they understand the why. So please feel free to share any of those videos.
So the what's tricky is you're trying to get kids to talk about. I was doing this in Alabama right before we got all locked down with the kids, and it was so funny. So we asked them what's tricky, and the kids say 7 times 8, and I say, why 7 times 8? And they're like, that's just tricky. 2 times 3, we know it because you could double. 4 times 12, well, 4 times 10, and then 8 more. So it's so interesting. The idea is to have a conversation, and the point is to get the kids to talk about what strategy they would use for the ones that they think are tricky. And so I made a series of cards for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I also made a series of cards called patterns. And so this is what it looks like. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I made these cards so that teachers can have conversations. It's like a visual number talk. So you say, what is 2 groups of 6? And kids can tell you. I like these cards because they can, when we say we want kids to be able to break it apart, you could see, oh, it's 2 groups of 5 plus 2 groups of 1, or it's 1 group of 1 plus 1 group of 1. These cards are all in the Padlet that I gave you guys. Or like, what's 10 times 6? It's 10 groups of 5, and they can visually see what that means, and 10 groups of 1, or it's 5 groups of 6 plus 5 groups of 6, right? So these cards are, you can find them, and I did them for, I think, 6, 7, 8, 9, to get kids to talk about, to talk about strategies. Remember, it's about strategies. You're trying to get kids to do strategic.
And again, those are on your mathrunningrecord.com site under freebies at the top.
Yeah,
so
they're in those
things. Yeah.
Yes, they are in those folders.
Yep. Yep.
All right, is there anything else?
Beth had raised her hand.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Our district's wanting us to use Google Classroom. And so we're trying to find ways to, we teach, my teammates on here too. We teach 1st grade. And so they're just learning Google Classroom to begin with. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can have the kids do our number talks and do our thinking without them commenting, because then if one kid comments, then other kids might just take that thinking. So does anybody have any ideas on how we can do that?
Elena, do you want to answer? Yeah, feel free, everyone. You can just unmute yourself and talk.
One way that we have started doing some number talks is through Flipgrid. So they record like I just might send out like a number talk or have them think about some numbers, and then they can record their answers back, and then all their classmates can see them as well. We've done skip counting with that. We've had, for some of the upper grades, like how do you make the number 240 using any of the different operations, and they're able to then share their thinking through a video.
And what was that called again that you record?
Flipgrid.
Flipgrid.
And it's fun because they can all see their videos, their classmates' videos of each other. And then I might go post one of myself doing one so they can see me back, you know, counting by a number, or, you know, how I thought of breaking apart a number.
Is that something they have to download?
It was, my district goes through, we have Chromebooks, and that was just available to us on it. It was pretty simple. If you just go onto Flipgrid, you create, and I think it's all free. You
It
just
is.
create a page for yourself, and then you post a question, and you can share it right into your classroom, and it gives a code. And if they click on that link, it brings them right to it.
Okay. Our district's just been really funny about what they're allowing us to let the kids use. Like, we have to use a district site that they have to approve all the apps that go on there before they can get into it, and which I understand, but it also makes it hard to hear all these great ideas that teachers are using, but we can't use them because they are not approved by the district.
You can lock,
So it just kind of causes some struggle.
you can lock down your Flipgrid so only people with your district email can use it.
Right.
Good to know. Thank
And
you.
what I might do is I might make a list of things that you want them to give you access to. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Since it looks like it's going to be a long ride. I might make
Right.
Right. Our district was always really strict about things as well, like tight security and everything. And that's something we've had access to. And, you know, more things are opening up just because of the situation that we're in right now.
And we're trying not to.
Hi, I did a math talk today on Zoom with the class and had everyone muted and had told them prior to our Zoom meeting to come with paper and pencil, and did a couple of activities, and then when they were ready, they did a thumbs up, and once everyone had something, then they were talking with their parents. I could see that happening. And then when I called on someone for the answer, how many agreed, how many disagreed. So I just did it all through Zoom.
Oh, and the thumbs up, they could do like, oh, I love that idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
And
just
those are-
like one less piece of technology I needed to throw at the parents.
And you have first graders.
Yeah, and we
I think
meet every morning. So it was just something kind of like our problem of the day, kind of an activity.
I've been finding so interesting how different districts are handling this in different ways. I've heard a lot of talk about equity, so that some states have said, you know, there's no new learning, just keep up some practicing and give them, the work is all optional. To the other extreme of people need to be by their computers from 8 to 3 and be available. Some teachers are doing asynchronous lessons. They're doing some kind of like thing that's filmed that the kids aren't on at the same time. Other teachers are doing a live lesson. It's just been so fascinating to me, the varying degrees, and unfortunately the varying degrees of stress. I mean, for a teacher to just put together a packet and call it a day, and that's totally fine with their administration, whereas others have this incredible thing they're being asked to do, plus homeschool their own children. Wow.
I don't think, also, I think that's a good point that you raised. I don't think that there's one answer, right? I don't think it's either or. I think we have to think of both and. So I think there should be some videos that kids watch where we're, you know, teaching and asking them questions and getting them to think. And then I think that there's got to be some kind of packet work And then I think there's got to be some kind of whole class meeting work. Now, I know that's a lot, but I just mentioned 3 things. But I think if we begin to think about how do we balance this in a way where we keep our own personal sanity at all times, right? My grandfather used to always say, don't go crazy because it's a long way back. Right? So you wanna maintain your personal sanity at all times. And how do you do that? Maybe you say, you know what? I want to do some videos with the kids. I want to give them some rich thinking packets, and I want us to Zoom, but I'm not going to do all that in 1 week. I'm not going to start that tomorrow. We've got about 3 more months of this. So I'm going to start at A, and then when I get really good there, I'm going to add B, and finally I'll add C, right? I think you have to be easy on your own self because you're trying to juggle a lot of stuff, right? And do what's best for kids. And we haven't even talked about what's best for kids with learning disabilities, right? How are our SPED kids getting access? What about our English language learners, right? How are they getting access? And I think those are big questions. One of the questions I asked the other night on Twitter, and I got a lot of response because I think it really resonates with us as educators. I said, we are so busy right now thinking about how do I do this? How do I teach? How do I teach? How do I teach? And I actually thought of this question when I was having a conversation with Annalise on the phone the other night. I thought, you know, we're so busy thinking about how do we teach, but the real question we should ask is how do they learn? Right? Because we're doing all this stuff, but we don't know if they really learn that way. So the question is, how do they learn? How do kids best learn online? And what am I doing in a way, and in what way am I doing it so that kids have access to what we're trying to get them out, right? And that's a bigger question, but I think it's as important as what am I gonna do tomorrow? What am I gonna do tomorrow? Because you could do all kinds of stuff tomorrow that makes absolutely no sense to the kids or the parents, right? So, and I think that's a bigger question. What are we doing in terms of equity? What are we doing for our L learners? What are we doing for our SPED learners? What are we doing for our L learners, not just the kids, but the parents who speak no English? What are we doing? How is your district using translators? Has your district put a system in where somebody can do some translation, right? Or at least put it in, have a written form, though all parents don't have access to written Spanish. Or it doesn't just have to be Spanish. I'm talking about Spanish because I was a bilingual teacher for 10 years. But I know you guys come from everywhere. You've got schools that have, 150 languages in them. So you're not going to possibly be able to translate all that stuff. So what are you doing to provide access? I think we have to at least ask the question. And I don't think there's easy answers. I don't have the answers, but I think we have to at least wrestle with the questions. So what I would encourage you guys to do as you meet with your groups and you do team planning is ask that question of the group. What are we doing in terms of equity to allow all kids and their parents, because a lot of this is falling on the parents now, access to the curriculum?
Dr. Nikki, I'll be honest with you. I have Google Classrooms, but I saw nobody really participating. You know what I did today? 21 phone calls. They all happened to be bilingual parents, and some of them thought that the Wi-Fi came with the Chromebooks. So you had to explain to them what to do, how to open it, where to look for it. You had to explain how to get to Clever. I literally have taken an hour in some of these phone calls just to educate the parents to help their children because they had no idea what to do. Absolutely. They want to do it, but they have no idea.
Yes, I love that story. And you know why? Because what it does, I think that your story pushes on our assumptions of what we think parents just automatically know how to do. I think that's a beautiful story because that's what we need to do. We need to give, before we even try to give access to the math or the English, we need to give parents access to the tech that we have assumed that they know how to use, right?
And that we're thinking that they don't really want to access it. They have no idea. And so we're talking primary level students who are either don't speak a language or not techie savvy. I'm learning tech. And I speak several languages, but that is not what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And these parents are frustrated, and so are the kids. So I think we have to be mindful to really reach out to the parents in whatever way we can to try to get them to access the computer so that we can teach the kids. And it's going to be one by one.
I love that story for so many reasons. My mother used to always tell me the story of, my mother grew up in Louisiana and her teacher lived with her. And so talk about having your teacher in your house. So her teacher lived with her. So she used to always tell me how close she was with the teachers. When I became a bilingual teacher, now I taught in a small town, I would visit my kids. Right? I would go to their homes. I would sit down with the parents. I would have a meal with them. I would talk with them. And I think we have to think about, like, what does that look like virtually? That costs you nothing, but gains you everything to reach out to those parents on the phone. And maybe that's what we need to say is, like, along with what did you teach today? What did you teach today? Which parents did you talk to today? What are their struggles? What are they having trouble doing? And it could be turning on the computer, which we assume they know how to do, right?
And they don't.
And they don't. So I love that. I think we have to start doing virtual home visits, right? And maybe we don't have the time to do 21. I admire you for doing 21.
But you know what it is? You said it right. You said, I was going crazy putting all these Google Classroom lessons. And when I realized, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm putting, the cart before the horse. Let's get to the beginning and and that's all I'm doing is working one day at a time.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yes. And maybe you only can call 5 parents a day or something. Are you, just to check in. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. How are you doing? Are you able to get online? Do you understand what we're doing? Those virtual visits, I think you're onto something there. I think you need to tweet that story.
Okay.
Because you know what I mean? It's so simple. It's so simple, but it does so much, right? It's just a little tweak that takes you so much further than if you hadn't done that small little thing, right? Which is the biggest thing that you could have done.
Yeah, I actually have a class that they'll be on Zoom, but now they know how to get there because before they had no idea.
Yes, that is so important.
Well, I'd love to make sure that you all know that Math Running Record Facebook group is here to support you guys in the journey that you're going through. So if you ever feel like you want something, or you need any help or anything, or even just to have a Zoom chat like this, just to talk and see other people's faces and share ideas, I am happy to host these as often as you'd want them. You can just, direct message me and say, hey, I could use a good chat, and then I'll put together one and the date and the time, and not an official presenting stuff, but just to talk to each other. And for myself, I do love my husband very much, but it's just him that I'm seeing a lot. So it's nice to see other people and be able to chat. And I want to do something to help all of you in what you're going through. If there's anything ever I could do to help you in any way, please just reach out and let me know.
The other thing I want to add to that is that I will Zoom in if you have a grade level meeting and you just need somebody that's not part of the grade level. I'll Zoom in. You know what I mean? I'll Zoom in for like 20, 30 minutes and just have a conversation with your team about what's going well, what's not going well. And you guys are all members of the group. So I'm obviously not going to charge anybody anything. Just, you have to schedule it with me. And you can't be like, Dr. Nikki, we're meeting tomorrow at 9:20. Can you be on? And then be mad at me if I'm not able to make it. So you have to tell me ahead of time, because I like to sleep these days till 12. I start my day at 12. Everybody knows. I even told my godson's mom, she's like, can you do 12? I was like, no, I could do 1 because I'm just getting up at 12. So, but I stay up late. So, but if you need me to Zoom in and meet with your team and just kind of flesh out some ideas with you, I don't mind doing that. Just email me at drnikki7@gmail.com. And I'm volunteering Annalise. I'm sure she'll do the same thing.
I absolutely will. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You get the mini Dr. Nikki and me. I'm the mini me for Dr. Nikki.
Could Dr. Nikki, could you say your email address again?
Yes, Annalise, we should type it.
Yeah, sure. I will.
Okay, it's Dr. Nikki, DRNICKI, the numeral 7@gmail.com.
Thank you. I'm going to take you up on your offer.
Okay. I think
don't
it's good to
know.
have fresh perspectives. You know what I mean? Because it gets very circular sometimes in the conversations when you're talking with the same people and everybody's really stressed anyway. So if you have a voice that's not part of that circular movement, they can just give you perspective.
Yeah, I think that what's happening with my team right now, I lead there's a math teacher leader at each one of our 11 sites, and we're planning way too much. Way too much. So I think that I might want to call you in to a meeting at some point and just kind of give us a reality check.
Louise, I'm with you because I'm a coach and I was trying to help the teachers. Well, a lot of the teachers are computer savvy. And so I changed my focus to let's do the kids, and the teachers, if they need help, they'll email you. The kids won't. So I changed my focus completely because I was so utterly frustrated. So
Well, I think too that you know, kiddos are in school, let's say 8:30 to 3, but they're not actively engaged 8:30 to 3. I mean, there's lunch and recess and specials and lining up, right? So the idea of giving kids work that would last them 5 hours is ridiculous. I saw some guidelines today for New Hampshire. I think it was 90 minutes for grades 1 and 2. Or maybe that was even the grade 3 and 4. It was much, much smaller than I had thought that it would be, but that makes sense, like a concentrated kind of time.
Our district has only been doing where we're meeting students for 30 minutes a day, and that's it. And I know other districts that are doing 25 minutes only twice a week. So when talking about how different districts are doing like vastly different things, I know my home district for my daughter is only doing 4 days a week for a half hour. You know, my own district that I'm working in, we're doing every day for a half hour. What I'm kind of struggling with right now is I service different groups, and while they're all on different levels, they're all still struggling with a lot of the basic needs of, you know, mastering multiplication skills and, you know, being able to divide and still, you know, they're 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, but still struggle with a lot of those, you know, basic skills that they need. And if I'm only technically supposed to be, you know, I'm scheduling an online time for 30 minutes each day. If I meet with those groups individually, I'm meeting maybe one group a day. If I lump them all together, I can meet with them every day, but then I'm not servicing exactly where we left off with them and still kind of just doing one thing. And so I'm kind of toying with, all right, do I give more instructional time to that specific group once a week, or do I do a big group and see them every day, you know?
Someone mentioned that their district just wanted teachers to use iReady for 20 minutes for 5 days, and that's it. And then someone else said they had to give 3 hours of work a day. So, wow, is there extreme differences? Wow.
What scares me is the fact that the reality is they're going to miss. We talk about the summer and how they lose so much during the summer, that if we don't help them address some of these issues and help them get as much as they can now, we're really in deep trouble come September.
Absolutely.
It's
So
very
I'm
scary.
curious, pardon me for interrupting you. I'm curious, I'd like to ask a question of the group. Are people getting direction on is there an expectation that they're teaching new content, or is there an expectation that they're just maintaining what's already been taught?
So I know my district is that they've moved forward with going ahead with new content, at least for the classroom teachers. I know for the RTI, we're trying to maintain those skills and support them with what they're learning in the classroom. But it's been the directive of the district to keep on keep teaching and furthering, going through the curriculum.
In our district, we're in Colorado, and our district has told us like we're kind of building the ship each week, and they're giving us stuff each week to build on. This week it was all about just build those connections with families, get out and make sure kids are connecting with you, make sure they're seeing their faces of their friends and their teachers. So that's kind of what we're doing. They haven't really given us a direction to go. I'm sure it's all going to change because I can't see us probably coming back from this year. So.
But then I would think the first 2 weeks it was like just hold it still, it's okay. But now our New Hampshire just went to at least May 4th, and we can't imagine them going back to school this year at that point. So that's tough. You're talking, as Dr. Nikki said, a third of the school year.
Right.
And it's hard to just maintain and then have a summer and then come back in the fall, expecting to go forward. Goodness gracious. But new instruction is difficult.
Yeah.
You know, parents are not teachers. Teachers are a profession for a reason. So to introduce new content, let alone our students who are don't have the skills necessary for learning the new content. The whole equity issues is huge. I totally understand why some districts are saying, don't worry about it, just do enrichment, or because that's just not fair to so many populations of our kids.
And in addition to moving forward with new content, because we're only scheduled to meet with our children for half hour a day, they're picking a subject matter per day. So say Monday they're doing math, and Tuesday they're doing ELA, Wednesday they might be doing social studies or science. So each day it's a different subject matter. So by the time they come around to math again, it's, you know, maybe a whole week later.
Oh man.
It's really interesting to see the differences in what schools, like I said, like I have friends who are in a different district that are doing 2 times 25 minutes a week, and I'm like 25 minutes a session. I'm like, how is anything going to be moving forward with just that? I know some districts that won't allow teachers to meet face-to-face, with any Zoom or online chatting. It's like a hard no from their district. You know, initially our union was telling us not to meet face-to-face, and now they've kind of said, okay, now we will be able to meet with them face-to-face. It's just,
that
it's
privacy
a lot of uncharted water.
What's the reasoning behind not doing the face-to-face?
It's a little bit of it. You're entering personal life a little bit too much. So I have 2 small children, and they're asleep now, but during the day, I don't ever not get photobombed by one of them coming in and, you know, sometimes pressing my screens. And then I know one district said that they were in high school, and, you know, the last thing they need is for a student to screenshot them and use them as a meme or put their face there out somewhere else. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, privacy things that could be evaded, like people are seeing, you know, face a wall, but, you know, not everyone has the same home life. Who knows what you're having access to? And then when we're all like in a waffle like this, everyone's seeing each other. Another kid is seeing someone else's home life, which might not be something they want to share. So there's just a lot of things about being face-to-face with kids that I think are a wonderful way of connecting and reaching out to them and getting them engaged. But I can also see where a lot of things can get really tricky. And, you know, I'm an untenured teacher. If, you know, if anything goes, you know, if there's any sort of someone, like, so even with Zoom, like you can, actually not Zoom, there was another one that we just learned about.
Hangout.
Where you can have the students share their screen with you so that you can help them troubleshoot. God forbid there's something inappropriate on their screen that now they're sharing with the whole group.
Oh boy.
It's all complicated.
It's very uncharted waters, and it's, you know, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do, what's the right move for our students. But as we know, what's right for one student isn't right for a bunch of other students.
That's right.
So, you know, it's day by day here.
I think the learning gap is just going to widen. Those who do well and have great support this will just go straight through like nothing happened. For those who don't have that support, the gap is going to become wider and more difficult for those of us come September to have to differentiate, really teach 2 levels. It's going to become very different. It's our challenge is just beginning, really.
Yeah, I do agree, and I've been thinking that for a while. But then I just saw there was an article posted about what after Katrina that happened, where, you know, people were not, they left school too, and we, you know, I do think that in the end we'll pick it back up, we'll get kids back on track. I just, you know, we need to find our groove right now, and hopefully when we get back to our element in the classroom, you know, we'll have, you know, I don't doubt that, you know, we'll have lots of things to deal with afterwards and gaps to close. But I do think that once we get there, we'll be okay.
Yes. We're prisoners of hope and captives of faith.
Yeah.
That's what my friend Tracy always says. I'm really beginning to believe it right now.
Well, I just want to let you all know tomorrow's April 1st.
Wait,
And
you're
I,
gonna tell us all
I
this?
don't think I can just, and I have to just admit, I watched Tiger King. My husband and I binged Tiger King the other day. There is nothing you can show me that I'm just going to not believe it's April Fool's joke. Like, I believe the wackiest things are happening because this is so surreal what we're
Yeah.
living through right now that there's no April Fool's joke. I'm going to believe, like, yep, that could happen. Sure, that's true.
All right. Well, stay in touch. I'm sure we'll do this again soon.
You were
And
fantastic.
contact
Thank
us
you.
if you guys
Yes,
have-
thank you for all your help. All these sites and things are great things that we can use.
And please reach out and ask any questions or anything. If we miss a link or something, just feel free to ask in the group. We're always there for you anytime.
Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
well, have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.